Hey everyone, it's Michael from Landscape, and with the monitoring season fast approaching, if it's not already here, we thought it would be useful to post a tutorial on form building and what a form is and how you can use a form and everything form related. Um, so today I'm going to be talking about the functions of forms within Landscape, and then I'm going to show you how to build a form and then how to pull that form into a report. So forms are just a way of asking the same question over and over again. And you can use forms in Landscape in conjunction with site visits to collect data. That data can then be fed into reports to do things like build monitoring reports or structures reports. And some people might be familiar with Survey123, Fulcrum, or even Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. But the problem with these independent pieces of software um, in relation to your stewardship program is that they exist separate from the rest of your data. So you might need to ask questions that you already know the answer to, stuff like what's the landowner name and what's the name of the property. But Landscape already knows the answers to a lot of these questions. Since the form exists inside of a site visit, which is associated with a stewardship site, you don't need to ask questions like that on your form. They can just be pulled into your report when you're finished. So this means, another way of saying that is that a monitoring form in Landscape won't be a complete monitoring report until you use the report function after you've filled out the form within a site visit. So for example, here is a completed site visit report. And up top, it's pulling in stuff from the stewardship site, um, including the landowner, contact information. It's also pulling in information from the site visit entry itself that's not in the form. So this method and the visit date, as well as the personnel time, that's all stuff that's filled in a on the at the site visit level. And it's not until you come down here in the report where you see the actual form questions and the form answers. And then further down, there's more stuff that's brought in from the stewardship site and from the site visit. So the form really is only existing here in the central part of this particular report, and everything else around it is made up of site visit information as well as stewardship site information, even property information. And for more information on reports and to get a rundown of how reports work, we do have a video up on reports that should get you going with that. But we'll go over all of this in a moment too. We're gonna make a really basic monitoring form template and then see how we can use that form template within a site visit to generate a report. So form templates can be built in two different places. The first in settings lets all of your stewardship sites um, access that form that you're building. So this would be appropriate if you have a form that you want to use in most, if not all, stewardship sites, like a monitoring form. That would be a common one. The second place a form template can live is in the stewardship site itself. And that's also where you bring in those global forms that I was just talking about to live within the stewardship site. But building and using a form template inside of one stewardship site would be appropriate if you had a site visit type that's only specific to one stewardship site. So maybe there's a property that has special requirements and you want to make sure the same questions get answered on each visit. But since I want the form that we're going to be building today to be available to all records, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Settings, the little gear icon. I'm going to go to Work, and then we're going to go to Forms. You can see here is listed all of the global form templates that are available to each stewardship site. So within each stewardship site, it's a little tongue twister, you could call on any of these forms. And this is also where you create new form templates. So I'm just going to delete this and then make a new test form. So I'm going to click plus, give it a name like everything in Landscape. I'm going to call it test form. The next question is auto number questions. That's just going to number each question sequentially. And I don't want that on this form, but you might want it on a form you're creating. So that's there. And then we can start building the form. There are two two things you can add here. There's a text section, which is used for denoting different sections within the form, and then there's a question, and that's really what most people are concerned with when they're building out a form. So you can see when I clicked Add Question, adds a new question block, and we're ready to go. So up here is going to be the question itself. So you're always going to enter the question first. So who was contacted? And then down here, there's the different types of questions that you can ask. You can see short answer, multiple choice with explanation, pick from list, and then pick from list with explanation, and then non-question text, which is just this text section again. For who was contacted, it really makes sense to do a short answer because they're going to be entering, the user is going to be entering text. So we're going to make another one, and we're going to have this be a yes or no question. So we'll say, did you see any issues? And I'll say, so if you want the user to pick only one, you're going to use pick from list. And since I might want them to enter an explanation if they did find an issue, I'm going to say the options are yes and no, and then there's this explanation. So if yes, explain. So we're going to say no, and then this is prompting us to add a prompt, and in this case, I want it to be exactly that. If yes, explain. And I can add as many options as I want. This doesn't have to be a yes or no. I can delete them like this. And then also, if I decide that I want this up top, I can just drag it around using this button down here. This little drag thing, the hand will appear. And so finally, the last kind of question is a multiple choice question. That's if you want people to be able to enter more than one option. So a common one for that would be maybe the weather. So we can say multiple choice with explanation. What was the weather like? And we'll say snow cover, because that's what most people are concerned with on a monitoring visit. Could you see the ground? Say sunny. Precipitation. And then we'll say if other, enter here, so that the user can have an option to, if the weather was in some way remarkable, they could enter that question or enter that response. And so now, rather than only picking one or the other, or if there were many, they would only be able to pick one. They can pick multiple ones if they want. So that's really as a pretty quick rundown of how to build a report, but that's really all you need to get started. You can see it's a pretty simple process. And just a note on building forms, it seems to be good practice to have as many lists or multiple choice as you possibly can when you're building your forms. The more streamlined you can make this, the easier you can make it for the user. I think the more likely they are to fill out the form in the first place and to fill it out accurately. So with that having been said, we're going to go back to the forms. Pressing back will save it. You can see it's right there. It's got 3 questions. But I'm going to navigate now to a completed form that I made earlier. And this is a full, complete monitoring form with all of the questions that I want. It's got some nice text delineation happening in there for when it's brought into the completed report. Sections for landowner feedback and monitoring notes, as well as some multiple choice for the weather, for areas visited, possible violations, and multiple choice for reasons for any follow-up, if follow-up is needed. So great. So we're done building our report. We've given it a nice descriptive, sorry, we're done building our form. We're going to give it a nice descriptive name so that we can access it. And now we're going to go to the site where we want to use that form template. So let's go to Annie's Snake-Filled Pinnacle. We're going to go to work because that's where site visits happen. And actually it looks like that's from the last video I tried to make, so we're just going to delete that. Okay, great. So up top, these are the site visits themselves. This is where you're going to be entering all the data for your site visits. And down below is where these site visits are going to have access to these form types if you're using a form in the site visit. And so the form visit, the site visit form library currently only has this satellite monitoring form. You can see the visit type that I created is a type of satellite monitoring. There are 4 questions in it, and I want to add the form template that we just created. So this site visit type is going to tell you that every time you create a new site visit with the type of this, it's going to pull this form template into that site visit. So annual monitoring is exactly what I want, but you can see there's a bunch of different site visit types that I created, and that's list is customizable via the settings, like a lot of other lists. You can see I have some customized things, Forever Wild Easement as well as satellite monitoring in there. Give it a nice descriptive name, annual easement monitoring. Let's say 2020. And this next part's really important. So using library form, that's accessing the global form library that we started out in today. And when I click on that, it's going to ask me which form template do I want to use for this type of visit. And I would like to use the default monitoring visit form video. It's going to say, are you sure? Because if I was using a different form template, I would overwrite that here. But I'm not doing that. I just want to proceed. And there it is. There's our nice, beautiful form template that we created. You can see all our questions are in there. And in addition, we could start customizing it further, but customizing it further from here would only customize it for Annie's Snake-Filled Pinnacle. So that's an important point. If you want to make changes to this global form, you have to go back to settings and change it there. However, you might find it useful to customize this form template within this library, within the site visit form library. Maybe there are some questions that you want to add specific to Annie's Snake-Filled Pinnacle. But for now, we'll keep it the same. We'll navigate back. You can see now it's in there, Annual Easement Monitoring 2020. And so now, when I go up and add a site visit with the type of annual monitoring, scroll down, you can see there it is, our nice beautiful form all ready to go and start being answered. And we can now actually start filling out the site visit form. So with the landowner, pick some options. They were contacted by passenger pigeon. No response. But like I said in the beginning, the form is really only a part of the site visit as a whole. And so we can also use these fields to enter other information from the site visit. No changes to report. Great, we're going to enter who went there. I'm going to say Michael spent 4 hours. And as a side note, I know a lot of you are thinking about the app right now and how this relates to the app. And while I'm not going to be really talking about how to use the app today, making this form template available to this stewardship site would then make this form template available to all the site visits you're doing on that stewardship site in the app. So you'd be able to enter all of the information that I'm entering right now in the app. So that's a pretty good start there. It's not complete, but I'm just going to press go on creating the final report. So over here, we've got the report button. I'm going to click Generate Report. It's going to populate down here with all of the reports that are associated with the site visit type. And I'm going to click, I think it's Site Visit Report. And there it is. So it's pulling in the information from our form, as well as from the site visit itself. And we can now save it, we could sign it, we could put it wherever we wanted to. Of course, if you needed to, you could create a view and then do this in bulk, create all of these reports at once. But that's your basic rundown of forms. So I hope that walkthrough helped a lot. I know that just explaining the difference between forms and reports and how they relate to each other can be really helpful to folks to get started. Yeah, that's great. And one last thing is that, so next year, if I wanted to bring in a new annual monitoring form to associate with the visit type of annual monitoring, so maybe I want to change this form or I want to bring in a new form, it would not alter the existing form data. So you can go in and tweak the forms from year to year, and actually probably encourage you to do that. Improve them as you go along is definitely a strength of the software. It's nice and flexible. Okay, so that's it for the walkthrough on forms. Again, I hope it was helpful. And as always, feel free to reach out with any questions that you have to me or Caleb. And good luck on your monitoring visits this year. I hope you find some fun stuff and not some not fun stuff. Okay, I'll talk to you all later. Bye.